Corporate America now, I think, is awakening to the reality that you must do well and do good. And I think in many ways that's opening new doors of collaboration with the nonprofit sector that in my 25 years of working on both sides of that equation, I haven't seen this moment. And there have been some organizations like Save the Children that have done a great job of collaborating with corporate America. But I think what we're seeing now is corporate America is actually starting to understand that it's an imperative. It's a business imperative for them to get involved socially. It's not a nice to do. And so it's actually coming out of the philanthropic arm of corporate America and moving sort of into the engine, into the hiring, into all of the things that kind of make corporate America go. And I think that's a really important thing because it's a great moment and opportunity for all of us who are in the nonprofit sector and for corporate America to start those collaborative things because neither sector will solve this by itself. So that's a really important point. My Brother's Keeper is an initiative focused on low-income communities broadly, boys and men of color more specifically, and really trying to figure out how to get some of these disenfranchised populations back into action, into the American economy. There's a different language that's spoken between the nonprofit sector, the for-profit sector, and the government sector. And I've actually spent time in all three, and most recently as chief community officer at Starbucks. But I think that what I often tell nonprofit leaders is if you're trying to solve a problem in your community, especially if it has to do with economics and jobs, and you look around the room and there are no for-profit companies in the room, something's wrong. Like you need to just stop yourself and say, we need business in the room having this discussion. I remember when I was going to business school way back in the early 90s, you know, they would talk about you're probably going to have 3 or 4 different careers. And that was a huge shift for my dad, who had basically one career when he came out. I think today these young people are looking at, you know, 8, 10 different things that they'll be going through, and the diversity of those experiences that they're already having at a young age. I mean, many of them have started nonprofits by the time they get to business school, much less working in a nonprofit. I think that kind of ingenuity is going to help unlock so much in the social sector in terms of problems that we're facing as a country and problems that we're facing globally. So it's a different kind of a day today than it was. A lot of these institutions are sitting on incredible endowments right now, and the question of how is that money being spent? Is it being spent really for social good? Can it be spent in a more effective way to increase diversity on campuses, to increase the well-being of communities that surround these universities? I think that's a real question that we need to push on in the 21st century, because we've got some massive endowments with some of these institutions. And then the third thing I'd throw out is I think there's a role for corporate America. When I was at Starbucks, we launched something called the College Achievement Plan, which was if you worked at Starbucks for 20 hours a week as a barista, still in place today. By the way, anybody who has kids and you want to get them to work at Starbucks for 20 hours a week, you can go and get a degree from Arizona State University online, tuition-free, right? This is a company that's saying we want to have a contribution to social good, which I think is really important, and we recognize the value of an educated workforce from the undergrad perspective. And those are the kinds of things that I think we could grow into graduate level. And again, the companies aren't doing this purely for altruistic reasons. I mean, I loved Starbucks when I worked there, but you know, the sale on this, that was launched through my team when I was at Starbucks. The sale on it was as much around social good, and it was as much around the benefit for the company as it was in the long term for social good. And what I mean by that is when somebody gets a college degree, they earn $1 million+ more over the course of their career. They have a 50% lower probability of being unemployed at any time in their career. And therefore, they, as a result of that, you know, in the old Henry Ford model, they're going to buy a lot more of your product because they were wealthier to be able to do that. That's actually a virtuous circle. There's nothing wrong with that as an incentive for companies to invest in the workforce. I think we need to think about creatively how do companies start taking some of those kinds of initiatives to the graduate school level, particularly to the MBA.